Thursday evening before an Auburn football game. That means it's time for us to preview and offer predictions for what's going to take place in game number 4, Auburn versus Texas A&M. We're going to walk through it here, take a lot of your comments and questions, and hopefully we can all get to a point where we're taking an informed look and prediction at who's going to win Auburn versus Texas A&M. War Eagle Auburn family, War Eagle E2C Network family, thank you so much for joining us, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on the replay, however you got here, we appreciate you being with us, being part of our little family within the Auburn family. As has been the case on Thursday evenings before every Auburn football game, we typically get together and do some sort of preview and prediction show, and that is what we're going to continue doing here this evening. On tap for us to discuss tonight, Auburn versus Texas A&M. Big one, folks, not just for Auburn, but for Texas A&M too. Lot to break down and talk about. So hold your final score predictions to the end of the stream. I know if you're watching the replay, you may want to just go ahead and offer it up now. But if you're watching live, we're going to walk through this together today. As most of you that have been here for quite some time know that we'll go through a different little format, give you some information that may help you make a more informed choice about what to predict as we preview this matchup. A couple things to keep in mind as we get started on the show tonight, how you can help us. Make sure you smash the like button if you feel like we've earned it this evening. If you enjoy our content, it is the easiest thing that you can do and the best thing that you can do in terms of helping us grow and continue to build our little family within the Auburn family. But what we'd love for you to do right now in the chat, please do make sure that you smash that like button if you can. I just noticed that my microphone was a little bit wonky there, so that should have fixed it there for everybody. So I apologize for those technical difficulties there. But do check in with us right now. Make sure you smash that like button, post where you're watching from, your city, state, and international. If you could do that with a War Eagle, let us know who is here. As is typically the case, if you are a Texas A&M fan that is checking in here, if we see anybody in the chat, please do let me know that you are there. We will let you call into the show. Only Texas A&M fans tonight. So it's going to be a fun one. We're going to walk through it as we typically have before, and excited to talk about this all-important games. Mr. Beautiful checked in early. David Franks, Stan Burgess. Good to see all of you here so much early and often hanging out with us on this particular stream. So here's the layout about how we typically go through this thing. We spend the first few minutes just kind of walking through the general notes about this game, when it's taking place. What are the big storylines around it? Series history. I actually failed you guys a little bit. Don't have that particularly on hand, but what we can talk about is the history recently about who wins this game and who wins the game when it's played at certain places. That's an important aspect as well. When we get done with all of that, we're going to look at what we know about each of these teams on ESPN. They've got some prediction things over there. They've got the stats. Then when you kind of line them up and compare them, we're going to look at that. And then we're going to walk through offense, defense, and even a special teams commentary, offering predictions about what might happen. That'll give you a better information about what your score prediction should be. So a lot on tap this evening for this show. So please be interactive. Let me know your thoughts, and we'll be taking some of those throughout the evening tonight. Now, I'd love to get the temperature of the room. How is everybody feeling about this game? The Texas A&M. Are you just excited that SEC play is beginning, where we're getting into real competition? Are you excited about what this could mean for Auburn if they get the win? Are you worried about it? I would also counter that if you are an Auburn fan that's a little bit, I want to say indifferent, but a little bit concerned about where this team, the future of this team might be going because of this game, I would tell you that Texas A&M fans are very much in the same boat as us, but for different reasons. It feels to me, gauging the temperature of the room for all that's involved in this game, that Auburn fans have more to gain. Texas A&M, not just fans, but Texas A&M has more to lose with this game. So you can imagine how that might line up with pressure, who's got the most pressure on them to not mess up, to not make a mistake. To me, the more I look online, the more I talk to people, it sounds like Texas A&M is definitely feeling that pressure, and Jimbo Fisher is feeling that pressure. But interested to know what the temperature of the room is here for our Auburn fans, which are the majority of our audience, how you're feeling, how excited you are about it. Any general thoughts about the matchup before we start to dive into some other storylines around the game? Corey, good to see you. Checked in earlier with us. Mr. Beautiful says, very excited. First 3 games was the preseason. In some ways it is, although that second game of the preseason was a little bit, a little bit worrisome, a little bit troublesome. Stan's even saying that preseason is over. I will be honest with you all. I enjoy non-conference play, even the rinky-dink games, because it's kind of getting you geared up for everything. And with that one marquee matchup that you have every single year with a Power 5 school, even in a year where California is not the most sexy matchup, it's still a fun thing, especially when you get to go out to California. It's just like a new, novel thing. Sure, it was a little bit troublesome out there in terms of worrying that we were going to drop that game, but we didn't. 3-0, the Tigers are coming in to this particular game. So preseason is over, for as some of you, excuse me, have said. But it is now SEC time to talk about all those things. Again, I see a lot of you dropping your predictions. Save them. We're going to do them at the end. I'm not even going to address them right now, but you can put them there, but we're going to address the main predictions at the end of the show. Corey says that if Jimbo loses Saturday, it will be his death nail in the coffin. We talked about this last night on our Wednesday night show. Does this become a very much Les Miles situation with Auburn, taking out Les Miles after beating him in Jordan-Hare Stadium at the end of his tenure? I doubt that he would get fired unless he just got walloped by Auburn. Now, if Auburn walks in there and just annihilates Texas A&M, that might cause some things to start taking shape very quickly. But I think if they do lose to Auburn, you're going to really see some grumbling start to happen, and the hot seat will be fully hot at this point. Carl pointing out that, excuse me, I had my water over here too. Had a little tickle in the throat. Had to clear it. Good to hear some of the injured guys are going to be available. Yeah. A lot of those injuries seem like they were just nagging things that were going to, hopefully figure themselves out, and they definitely are seem to be doing that. Efficient Gaming, I meant to bring yours up. Checking in with strep throat, feeling like crap, looking forward to discussing the game. Well, it's very easy to discuss it, right, when you don't have to call into a show and talk about it. So, but I hate that you're feeling bad, but happy that you're here with us hanging out. Jason says if we run the ball and control the ball, we got a chance. Very much the case anytime when you're on the road, especially in the SEC. How in the heck are we skipping over Auburn having too many turnovers and still scoring 45? Sanford can't be that bad. Well, it's not that they're that bad. It just means that they're not of the caliber of player and athlete and team that Auburn is. I mean, it's FCS versus FBS. That just doesn't happen unless you're Michigan losing to App State. And I'm sure there's some other examples, but that's like the classic one right there. App State is now FBS, but they used to not be that. So obviously, a lot on the table here for this team. We talked about the pressure for both sides. If you recall, I hope you all had a great view now of what Texas A&M fans are feeling. If you've watched our interview with Robert from Good Bull Hunting, the SB Nation Texas A&M site, you got a pretty decent view there of what they're feeling like about this game, that there's still reason to be positive for Texas A&M fans, but there's a lot of fear. So if you haven't watched that, please do. I think you get a good perspective, and I would recommend that you follow them when you can for Texas A&M coverage when Auburn will be playing Texas A&M in other sports this year. So really enjoyed our conversation with Robert. David points out that you can't turn the ball over. You can't do it. You definitely want to win the turnover battle. It's going to be turned over at some point. That's just the nature of playing this game. But you got to win the turnover battle. Your margins got to be in the positive. If you do that on the road at Kyle Field, I don't care how up and down Texas A&M has been, that place gets going, it's not going to be good for Auburn. And they are a big deal, definitely. Fishing Gaming, don't think they let Auburn run the ball. We win by passing the ball, which will open up the run. We'll need some runs by the quarterback too. And he definitely showed that he could do that last game. So definitely reasons to feel positive about Auburn's offense. But now we find out if that was just because it was an FCS opponent or an FBS opponent. Or now that we're playing an FBS opponent. So those are the big things right now. The game is at 11 a.m. Central Time, folks. I hope y'all are ready to wake up. How frustrating is it to, one, go to a game at 11 a.m., but to have to get up and watch that? And I despise with every bit of my being 11 a.m. kickoffs. Does anybody here in the chat like 11 a.m., especially for a matchup like this? I get that Auburn is a little bit down. Texas A&M has not been stable for a while. But my gosh, I mean, this is still a good matchup every single year, it seems like. Why is this not a night game at bare minimum? Last year, and we know why, because the Cadillac story was just too juicy not to. But that team last year got a night game with Texas A&M. Now, what this does mean is that hopefully we're kind of getting, they try to spread those out evenly. We're getting some of those 11 a.m. games out quick, at least on the SEC side of things. I don't think it'll be the last one, but you know, what this does is set up maybe an Ole Miss, Mississippi State night game situation, which will be really fun in the middle of fall, some better weather. Man, it'll be good. It'll be good. It'll be good. It's good for Auburn this time. On that note, Mr. Beautiful, so if I remember correctly, Hugh was asked in his press conference this week about 11 a.m., how he feels about that. He says if I remember correctly, he preferred having the early kickoffs. I guess everybody's got their reasons. Not my cup of tea, but definitely seems to be something that he's not really worried about. Jason says, I'm here in Texas. It's really hot here. I bet it is. Their fall doesn't really exist at this point. David's of the opinion that the SEC should not play at 11 a.m. Unfortunately, they're going to have to, but you would think our conference gets the exception to the rule sometimes. Maybe Texas A&M players will be hungover from the night before. You always run the risk of when you're the home team in your home element, feeling comfortable. Usually that's why they send these players away from campus the night before. I know you're just being funny, but that's why Auburn does it. Get them out of trouble. Yeah. 2:30 and 6 are the best. I personally agree. Carl says, personally, Auburn has no pressure. Just play solid, compete. Covering the spread is a win. Think they usually can exceed that and win. The 11A kickoff is good. Less energy in the stands. I see what you guys are getting at with saying that that's in Auburn's favor. I would say that would be a bigger deal of there being less energy in the stands if this was like the middle of SEC play. This is the first SEC game of the season for both teams. This is a big deal. I don't think energy is going to be a problem for them. Now, as I think it was, Neil referred to, that people may be a little bit hungover. Sure. Doesn't change them from being rowdy. Either way, it is, I don't think it's going to be a problem, the energy of the crowd. Now, if Auburn can take the crowd out of this game, that's going to be a huge, huge, huge thing. Let's see what else. Will we be able to get good pressure on Weigman? It's Wigman. Sorry, I keep wanting to say Weigman, but Wigman. As in, does A&M's O-line look any good? So here's the biggest thing. Hugh talked about it in our press conference this week. We don't really truly know what Auburn, and for that matter, Texas A&M, truly is like until we get against this SEC competition. Now, Texas A&M's been tested by Miami and lost. So that could say is a good barometer test for where their units stack up. Auburn facing Cal, maybe not such a good barometer test, but at least gives you somewhat of an idea. So we will find out. Will A&M's O-line look good? Will Auburn's pass rush be better? All of those things are at play here. Rodney, good to see you. Thanks for checking in with us. All right. We've talked about some storylines around the game. the pressure on Jimbo, the pressure on Texas A&M, maybe the less pressure, the less to lose for Auburn, the 11 a.m. kickoff of this aspect. SEC play. Now let me switch gears a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and start bringing this up on the screen for you. And I know it'll look a little awkward, but I want you guys to at least have this information before we move into discussing our predictions, and keep your comments coming along the way. So with that in mind, if you'll look at my screen here, we're looking at ESPN's analysis of this game. Right now, Auburn has a 32.8% chance to win on the road at Kyle Field. I think that's a little generous for Texas A&M. I would probably say it would be much closer to 40% for Auburn if I was picking this, but that's kind of where we're standing at right now. 81, not bad temperature for game time, although it's going to probably get much harder. The line is currently at -8, favor of Texas A&M, over under 51. So keep those things in mind when you're thinking about what your prediction might be. If you look here, and I think you guys can see my cursor, maybe you can't. Maybe you can't. But if you look here, you'll see passing leaders and compare them. Peyton Thorne, 43-63, 517 yards. Most of those stats coming in the last game. Wigman, whatever. I keep saying Wigman. 909 yards, almost 1,000 yards already, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So he seems to be taking care of the ball, at least comparatively. Auburn's leading rusher is Peyton Thorne, folks. Just take that in for a second. Obviously, we're hoping that changes in some ways coming up in this game. Hopefully get a more dominant run game. Daniels for Texas A&M, 34 carries, 149, 2 touchdowns. Those are your leading rushers for both teams. And then receiving leaders, Stewart for Texas A&M, 19 receptions, 257, 2 touchdowns. Jay Fair, the favorite target so far of Peyton Thorne, is obviously the leading receiver for Auburn at this point. We'll finish up here, and then I'll kind of come back to some of your comments and questions here. Team stats comparatively. So use this in our discussions. This is what we know about these teams this, 3 games through the season. What we had to compare with. Both teams have played a Power 5 team. Both teams have played 2 rinky-dink teams and taken care of business. Texas A&M probably has played the better one there. Total yards, 428 for Auburn, 467 for Texas A&M. Pretty even there for the most part. Passing yards. Look at the difference there. Texas A&M is just like Samford, it seems like, a pass-heavy team. Auburn, almost even pass and rush. And then look at the rushing yards for Texas A&M, only 129. They want to beat us through the air. They're going up against one of the better secondaries in the nation and in the SEC. Will it prove to be so against SEC competition? Only time will tell. So there's your comparative stats for that. Yards allowed. Auburn's allowed 264. They've allowed 293. And you can see how it breaks down there further for Auburn versus A&M. They are clearly susceptible to the pass. And if you look at the games that we've played, Auburn has beaten Samford, Cal, and UMass. They lost pretty decently to Miami, but beat Lamo and New Mexico pretty handily and easily. So with that in mind, that is, switch back over here to you guys. That is some information, some stats to think about in this game and to consider as we go through some of these predictions. Let's see what you guys were saying. The Cal game killed the stats. They did, very much so. I don't know that they would have been a humongous improvement, though, if it was, obviously, if it was an outstanding game and we just annihilated Cal, it would be different, but I don't think it would have been that much better. You never know, right? Can only go with what we know happened. Let's throw some fairy dust on the situation. Auburn will be the most dominant team everyone sees Saturday. Maybe so. Devin, thanks for checking in. Good to see you from a baseball game. Carl says that the travel to Cal was the big test. I think the team adjusted well. The coaches get higher criticism for game plan, hardest to adjust. Very young Auburn players in a true hostile environment. That's the big thing here we haven't even mentioned, is because of injuries, some significant ones at defensive back, at linebacker. There's a lot of young talent and further depth that's getting a lot more time than maybe they were originally going to get. Does that worry you? Does that make you concerned? You'll have to answer that question for yourself. I've been pretty impressed with the young talent thus far. Carl says, I don't feel dread. That's a huge plus. Now, let's put that in perspective. When you come off a year that, in 2 years really, that we've had, there's really not much more to dread, right? I mean, it could always get worse. I acknowledge that, but there's really not much more that Auburn typically would run into. All right, so from this point, we have talked about the storylines around this, when the game is happening, what we kind of think about the feelings around this game. We have now looked at some stats and when the last couple of games that they have played, some information about leaders. It is now time for us to move on to predicting. Not your scores just yet. Hold on. Give me some predictions within these scenarios. We're going to walk through offense, defense, and special teams. Predictions for offense first. I'm not asking for your score, but I want to know from you right now in the chat, be as interactive as you can. How many points do you think Auburn is capable of scoring? Now, I know that basically means, well, I'm just telling you one side of my score prediction, but really think about this. How many points do you think Auburn's offense is capable of scoring against a defense like Texas A&M? Remember what we just talked about. They seem very susceptible in the pass game. We clearly are strong right now in that area, stronger. But what happens if the run game gets going? So how many points do you think Auburn is going to score in this game? Maybe if you're thinking there's a win, how many do you think they need to score to get a win? There might be a better way to ask it in the future. Excuse me, yelled in here a little bit. As you guys can tell, I'm in the secondary studio with some travel stuff that's going on right now. 21, 20, 28, 27 seems to be a consensus here. We're in the 20 to 28 range right now. That's looking like pretty much consensus. Efficient Gaming's a little bit more optimistic, 28 to 38. Frieza Montgomery will scheme up some plays for success. Travis says 25. We're all kind of falling into that range right there. Carl, a little bit more optimistic, 32. The Aggie DBs are not the strength of their D. That's what we're banking on, right? So we're looking at some people went up into the 30s, but if we what I'm seeing here is a consensus. It looks like most people, if we kind of average them all together, Stan's going to really throw it off with 49. Geez. If we get that much, we will definitely win. But I think the consensus of what we're seeing here is in the mid to upper 20s is the capability of Auburn to score. Is that enough against Texas A&M? We'll answer that question in just a little bit here. Grant's asking a big question. Can Auburn get a pass rush in A&M? We'll get to that. We're in offense right now. But hold tight to that question for just a second here. All right, next question for you. Next prediction. So we've talked about how many points Auburn has the potential of scoring on offense. How many passing yards do you think that Auburn will have and touchdowns, passing yards and touchdowns in this game? We're going to ask rushing in a little bit, so we're just asking about the passing now. How many passing yards and touchdowns will Auburn have in this game? Most of you have predicted in the range of mid-20s for points, so consider that into your answer if you want to. Just think about those things there. As a reminder, they give up, yards allowed, 200 yards passing per game. It's well over 2/3, well, right around 2/3 actually, of what they give up. I shouldn't say act like I know proportions. Neil says 132 pass, 1 passing touchdown. Texas A&M is lacking in the pass D, so I say 275. 303 touchdowns, 225, 250, 3 touchdowns. A lot of people are suspecting the secondary. 292 and 1 touchdown. Oh, wow. Sorry, guys. I just knocked that. Told you, new studio, new setup. My hands are moving everywhere. Hope that still sounds okay. Does anybody think that we're not going to get a passing touchdown in this game? I mean, the stats would tell you that we're going to do decent in the passing game. Again, we won't know until we actually get out there and play if the stats are a true indication of how lackluster their DBs are. But we'll see. 253 touchdowns, 152 touchdowns. Now do interceptions. We'll get there. I think that's in my list or not. We'll get there. If not, you can answer it at the end of the offensive session. All right, so next one. How many rushing yards and touchdowns for Auburn do you think? Again, you just answered the passing yards one. How many rushing yards and how many rushing touchdowns do you think Auburn's going to get? This might be the key to the game right here, in my opinion. We've all discussed that Texas A&M has a susceptible defensive back group, that they give up more passing yards than they do rushing yards. Auburn has shown some success and some pretty talented athletes in their wide receivers and tight ends. And Peyton Thorne seems to be on a little bit of a roll, at least for one game. But that's some momentum, right? But really, when you think about it, if Auburn has a really successful run game, which apparently it's going to be a little bit tough to do against Texas A&M, that might be the difference in the game. So what do you think? How successful would they be in the rush game right now? Neil says 250 rushing yards, maybe 3 rushing touchdowns, maybe. And that puts you, so you predicted, Neil, I think 1 passing touchdown and 3 rushing touchdowns here. So that kind of puts your prediction for our score, our point scored a little bit higher, because I think you were like 20, 21, if I remember correctly. There's a lot of numbers popping up here, so it's hard to keep them all straight. If we get 250, 3 rushing touchdowns, we're going to win the game. I think that is your benchmark. I'm glad Neil brought that up. If we do that, we win. 145. Again, I feel the game plan is going to be to sell out, stop the run. They don't think Auburn can win through the air. Sanford tried that, could not do it. Maybe Texas A&M can. 145 to 60 to 60. So what I'm hearing here, Harrison, is you're saying because we sell out on the air, we're just not attempting as much, or we're just not going to be successful? 346. It's all about how the offensive line performs. Where's Thomas at? Thomas is like going to be, he's like raising the roof on that comment right there. This is a big moment and a big time for the offensive line to truly show, have they taken the next step as a group? Not just in the run game, but in pass protection too. 225. Woo. 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. All short games, but 147, 3 touchdowns, kicks some field goals. I could see that. 60 rushing yards, best defense Auburn's ever faced. 93. I don't think that they're going to be held below 100 rushing yards. The question is, what can they do beyond that? Peyton Thorne and Robbie are going to be a factor with their legs at the quarterback position. But gotta have help from the running back room. There you go. I see some of you saying less than 100. I think we're going to get 100 regardless. Okay, so that's rushing. We've done passing. I've left my notes. There we are. Who do you think is going to be Auburn's top rusher in this game? Is it going to be Peyton Thorne? John Britton, we were just talking about the offensive line. We are rooting for Gunner and the rest of the boys and looking for them to show that they have taken the next step as an offensive line group. So thanks for being here. So who's going to be the top rusher? We've been asking this question over the last few games, and the popular answers have been, with Damari at first, then Jarquez, and then Robbie, because of showed how much we were going to use Robbie. Now you got to factor Peyton Thorne into this answer. So what is it? Who is it going to be? Who's going to be the top rusher? Even if you don't think that Auburn is going to be an outstanding rushing team in this game, There's still going to be a top rusher. Who's it going to be? Peyton Thorne, Jeremiah Cobb, Alston. Hunter's apparently dealing with some slight injuries. Yeah, I believe that's still true. It feels like the Hunter and Tank Bigsby situations are kind of similar this year, where having a hard time for different reasons, but getting going, injuries may be a factor in that, but it might be someone besides Jarquez. Probably will be, to be honest with you. Jeremiah Cobb's a interesting take, though. Not a bad take. John says the offensive line is ready. I believe in them. I believe this is the game they're going to show things have turned the corner. Alston, Hunter, if the ankle is good. Hunter, Neil says no idea. Well, we will have a top rusher. Let's just hope it's somebody who's very good. You know, I will throw out here that I think because there's the iffiness about Jarquez, Lucio wants Robbie. I'm going to say Damari just because he is the lead back behind him or beside him, however you choose to look at that. Cobb is an X factor in the rushing game, but I don't know that. Because here's the way you look at it. Let's say they utilize him in like some sweep type actions and he busts open one for like 60 yards. And then he gets like 3 more rushes the game. And so his yardage is what? 4 rushes for 75 yards. So yeah, he's the top rusher, but he wasn't the most, utilized and the one that kind of did the legwork of grinding it out. So Damari to me is going to be that guy. Jay Harrison is very high on Peyton. Thinks he'll have his best game. It's a pretty good game last game. Maybe. Cobb on the jet sweep or the sweep style, being some RPOs. Have we talked about the orange tweet yet? Because they're doing the orange face mask. No, we didn't cover that in the thing. We'll come back at the back end, and once we're done talking the predictions and talk about some of those things. So bring it back up, Devin. Do want to talk about that though. All right. Finally, in the offensive section, who will be Auburn's top receiver in this game? Who will be Auburn's top receiver? Don't think it's that cut and dry. I think there's a lot of good options. Who will it be? Is it someone we're not talking about yet? Is it someone that we're not thinking about? Who do you think that's going to be? Rivaldo Fairweather obviously is a big factor here. Jay Fair is our leading receiver right now in terms of numbers. Favorite target of Peyton Thorne. But the better they do, the bigger targets they become for the defense to lock in on. So is this someone else's time to rise to the occasion, whoever's healthy? This is the one David's bringing up that I feel like is ready to bust loose. Hooks. That's who I'm going to say. He attracts a lot of attention because of his size, but he hasn't really broken out quite yet. I think people are going to be paying attention to Fairweather. They're going to be paying attention to Fair and Fairweather. So we have pretty fair receivers. Mm-hmm. Bati as the best receiver? Or did you mean that as the rusher? That actually is a wild card of a pick, but I don't hate it. They give the ball to him out in the flats and let him go to work. It's not a bad one. Fairweather, Hooks, Bati, Hooks. I think the tight end will be the big factor in the passing game this weekend. Hope so. I'm gonna say Hooks, but I'm intrigued by that Brian Bati pick. It'll probably be Fairweather. It'll probably be Fair, like one of those two. But I'm ready for someone new to make their self known. All right, let's go on to defense. Let's start there and kind of work our way through our defensive stats now and talk about that. This is really where I think Auburn can control itself, control what's going on in the game, can keep something in check in Kyle Field. And I know it's an 11 o'clock game, and I know that A lot of people are suspecting that they won't be as loud and rowdy. I think they will. But the defense can help dictate that. So in your mind, think about this now. We asked how many points Auburn is going to score. Now I want to know from you all in the chat, how many points do you think that Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, Bobby Petrino are capable of putting on the board against Auburn? Not your score overall, but what do you think Auburn's going to give up points-wise? However you'd like to phrase that. Flip-flop that around. Again, this is Texas A&M's home field. They have a decent offense so far. They put up some points on the board even in their loss. What do you guys think? Got a hook 'em being thrown out here. 38, 20, 24, 27, less than 30, 28 tops, 24 to 27, assuming we get the pressure on the quarterback. Make some mistakes. Absolutely. So if I'm looking at our average so far until we get some more in here, we're looking somewhere, we got low of 20, high of 38. So we're looking somewhere in the upper 20s realistically. So that's a pretty even game. If you remember back to what people were predicting with the Auburn score, how many points they are capable of scoring here versus this. This kind of lines up perfectly with what the conventional wisdom is. Texas A&M is the favored team, but not by much. The line is 8 right now. So just keep that in mind. I hear dinging. What am I hearing dinging from? It's not from mine, is it? No, it's not from my thing. All right, so that's how many points we think that Texas A&M is going to score in this game. Let's move on to the next thing in defense. How many passing yards and touchdowns will Texas A&M have in this game? Just passing yards, just passing touchdowns. How many do you think they're going to have? Now, keep in mind, much like Samford, we already addressed this. This is a team that's very pass heavy, likes to throw the ball around, had some success doing it. Wigman seems to be distributing the ball pretty well, only giving up 2 interceptions. Maybe Auburn can double that up for him. But we'll talk about the turnovers here in a second. But how many passing yards and touchdowns do you think that they're going to have against Auburn? Or how many do you think? Auburn's got a stout defensive back group. Trouble is, injuries are kind of starting to mount up. Keontae Scott obviously has been injured. Donovan at one point was injured. Nehemiah is coming back from an injury. Young talent like Kayan Lee is having to play more and doing a good job, mind you. What do you think? 275. I'm taking it no touchdowns. 280. 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I'm going to ask y'all a certain thing on turnovers in a second to see what you guys think about a scenario. 225, 3 touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns, 250 passing yards. Let me go run back and look at this. Their passing yardage per game is 337 right now. Auburn's only allowing 155 per game. It's going to meet somewhere in the middle. Where is that middle, though? Rodney, thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us. 2 touchdowns, 4 passing touchdowns, 294. I think 250 and 3 touchdowns. The QBs have a shootout. So I think if I'm looking here, nobody has predicted anything less than 200. Check, yep. So it looks like we think we're going to give up some yardage. This could be truly a scenario where it's a bend but don't break. Classics Kevin Steele defense, even though this is Ron Roberts defense. We are going to find out, even with the injuries, how legit the defensive back group is at Auburn. If they come away in this game with giving up less than 250 passing yards and I'll say 2 touchdowns, they're real. Like they're about as real as you can get. I'm not saying this is the best passing team out there, but this is their bread and butter. If we can shut that down, that should make you all feel really, 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 really good. All right. How many rushing yards and rushing touchdowns will Texas A&M have in this game? How many rushing yards and rushing touchdowns will Texas A&M have in this game? Not their bread and butter. They are, I'm trying to go back to my page here. They are doing 129 rushing yards per game. Auburn's only allowing 109. Now, they have not faced a very proficient rush game or rush attack yet, at least SEC caliber. But this is not an SEC team that makes a lot off of the run attack, which is interesting, right? And it gives you a perspective of how Bobby Petrino has changed. You know, when Bobby was here at Auburn, he utilized the run game very well, given the athletes he had. But here he's more pass open, it seems like. Let's see, 137 rush yards, 87, 0 touchdowns, 1 first down with rushing. Wow, it's pretty rough. 180 rushing touchdown. Let me ask it a different way too. You know, and you can, if you already answered, you don't have to answer again, but I'm just curious, something to think about. What is the rushing total that Auburn can give up in this game to Texas A&M and still win? Is it below 200? Is it below 150? You know, in my mind, when I ask you that question, I answer it 150. If they hold them below that, that's a good day at the office. And we compare that where I said holding the pass defense below 250, that gets you 400 yards total, which if we look back, you know, they're getting 465 typically. That holds them under their average. At home, all the advantages in their favor. It's a good day at the office. Less than 100, no touchdowns, 90 yards, 0 touchdowns, 175 and below. So doesn't seem like anybody sees them going off, meaning above 200, but they could get up into those upper levels of all that right there. So 120. Okay. So there is your rushing attack for the Texas A&M Aggies. A couple more things here on defense. Who will be Auburn's top tackler in this game? In your mind, who is going to be Auburn's top tackler? I think we'd all love for it to be Eugene Asante. I would. I love that dude. Keep in mind, when you're answering this question, sometimes you want to think about the context. A pass-heavy pass-heavy offense, which means there's probably going to be more opportunities for catches, more opportunities for defensive backs, linebackers to make some tackles out in the flat, beyond the flats, beyond the line of scrimmage. So maybe your leading tackler isn't a defensive lineman, an edge rusher, an inside linebacker. Maybe it's an outside linebacker. Maybe it's a safety. Maybe it's the star position. Who do you think is going to be Auburn's leading tackler against Texas A&M? Asante. I love that name, Asante. Falk. We got a Falk prediction. Breakout game for Keldrick Falk. Is that what you're predicting? Jalen McLeod is a very, I want to call it easy answer, but it's just an answer that if you put it out there, you got a high chance of being right. This is a very similar situation for me as last week, where I said that I think the leading tackler, unfortunately, will be a defensive back. Sometimes that's not a good thing because if they're making more tackles, typically that means there's more catches being made, more yardage being gotten there. Oh man, I think it's going to be Jalen Simpson. I think Jalen Simpson's going to have himself a whale of a game, statistic wise, in more than one way. DJ James, they throw the ball a lot. Sante, hot take, Larry Nixon, not Dixon. Sante alone will have 3 sacks on Wigman. Sante, there you go. Okay. So we've got a bunch of predictions out there. Everybody loves the popular pick of Asante. There's a Jalen McLeod. There's a Falk. We've gotten a Larry Nixon and a I missed the other one. Where'd it go? DJ James. Maybe so. All right. Big question here to finish out defense. And it's kind of like a three-parter, so however you want to answer it. But this is all about the extra things on defense, not the tackling, not the points scored or allowed, or the yardage allowed, touchdowns. How many sacks, how many fumbles, and how many interceptions will Auburn have in this game? And how do you think it's going to break down? So offer me some predictions there. Auburn has gotten an interception every game. Jalen Simpson has gotten an interception every game. Will he do it again? I think so. I think Jalen Simpson is going to have himself a game. I think he is setting himself up for an outstanding year in not just college football play, but SEC play. I hope I'm not jinxing him, but I really feel like Jalen Simpson is going to have a great day tackling, is going to have a great day interception, at least, maybe a fumble recovery. Simpson has 3 interceptions, two interceptions. Kyle Reed. Wow. Kaufman, dark horse there. Thomas got here. Thanks for being here, buddy. 4 sacks, 1 fumble, 2 interceptions. 3 sacks from Noah. 2 fumbles, 1 interception. There you go. A lot of people are expecting Auburn to get a lot of sacks, interceptions, and fumbles. A lot of predictions here. Everybody's getting in on this one. A lot of different ones. A lot of variants here. I had a question I was going to ask you guys in this vein earlier. Now I've forgotten it. I think I got it again. I think I remembered it. Just give me like a 1 number answer. How many turnovers does Auburn's defense have to get for Auburn to win this game? Do you think they can do it with no turnovers? Do you think they can do it with 1? Whatever it is, and a fumble or an interception. Do you think 2 they need? I think they need 2. Do you think they need 3? I think they need 2. I don't care if it's a fumble recovery. I don't care if it's an interception, but I think they've got to have 2. They have got to switch the field and take the momentum away from this team. You can do that in a variety of ways. With turnovers, you can do that by establishing a run game and plenty of other things. But if they can do that big piece, put themselves ahead in the turnover margin in this game, create more opportunities for themselves to score, less opportunities for Texas A&M to score, 2 is a magic number for me. A lot of you agree. 3 to 4, 2. Flip the field, turnovers. Everybody seems to agree. I think that's probably an easy answer, but I think 2 turnovers will drastically change the game for both teams. Let's hope we're not jinxing Auburn. And I think there will be turnovers for Auburn too, just hopefully not many. All right, so we are sitting at we got about 12 minutes left on the stream, roughly. We might get out of here a little bit early, but we'll see. Now's the big part of the show. Everybody, what is your score prediction? Oh, no. Hold on. We didn't do special teams. Sorry, we got to do special teams really quickly. Sorry. Hold it. Everybody's like ferociously typing right then. And now backspacing. We're going to ask it again, so bring it back. Special teams real quick. How many punts do you think Auburn's going to have? How many field goal attempts do you think Auburn will have or made? And then any punt and kick returns. I usually ask those one at a time, but just for time's sake here, we'll go ahead and rush through that really quickly. I think if Auburn punts less than 3 times, or 3 times or less, that's a good thing for them in this game. There's going to be some punting, but hopefully not much. I do think that Alex McPherson will be a big factor in this game. Hopefully he can handle the pressure. I'm going to say he's 2 for 3 on the day with field goals. And I think that's where it's going to land for me. It's going to factor into the game pretty big. I really want us to get a punt or a kick return for a touchdown. If Auburn finally busts one of those loose in this game, boy, howdy, everything's just going to get crazy. Because that's an X factor that is hard to manage for other teams. 3 punts or less have a shot to win the game. I'm guessing this means 3 field goals, 2 field goals. Aussie. That's funny. 5 punts max, 2 field goals, 1 big special teams play. So that's interesting, Thomas. So you expect us 5. That tells me that it's going to be a lot of ineffective Auburn drives. At least that's how I interpret what you're saying here. But getting 2 field goals and a big special teams play, which I would interpret to be a touchdown, or at least good field position, like beyond the 50, that's maybe counteracts all of that there. So keep that in mind. Predictions. Now, we have talked about offense. We have talked about defense. We have talked about special teams. We have talked about the different nuances within all about that. We've talked about the game within the game, the factors, the pressure for Texas A&M and Auburn, how they're a little bit different, but yet the same SEC play, 11 o'clock game. We have talked about all of those things. But what is your score prediction? Drop it now. Lock it in. Obviously, you can change it if you want to after this point, but just for the purposes of our stream, lock your score prediction in right now. Who wins? Auburn, Texas A&M. I'll call back to our friend Robert, who was here, Texas A&M content creator. He predicted, I think it was, I'm blanking on it now. He did predict a Texas A&M win, but it was not by a lot. He predicted that the line would be met, the over-under would be met. I think it's going to be below. A lot of people are expecting this to be a high scoring game. I'm expecting it now to be a medium scoring game. And probably what I predict here in a second is going to be a low scoring game for most people. But I just think the defenses are going to factor into this game more than people are giving it credit for. All right, so let's read some of yours and I'll reveal mine. 37-24. 17-13 for Auburn. Travis says 46-13. I'm assuming that's Auburn. It's quite a bit of a victory there. Auburn with the upset, 31-28. David says 21-17 good guys, 35-27 Auburn. Thorne had another great game. Great pressure on their quarterback. 17-14 Auburn, 34-20, 45, Kyle, 34. So far, and I know some of you shared your score predictions earlier, everybody here has predicted Auburn to win. Oh, man. Well, y'all aren't going to like me then. I have gone back and forth about this game a bunch. At the beginning of the season, I believe my prediction was that Auburn would win against Texas A&M to walk into the Georgia game undefeated. I think some of the injuries will make it a bit of a challenge for Auburn. Not that they completely make this team fall off. I think it's SEC versus SEC, and so you don't have to throw everything out, what we've already learned, but this is where rubber meets the road. I do think it's going to be under the predicted line for the game. I think it was 51 or something like that. I do think the spread of the game, or whatever, I think I said those backwards, was for an 8-point differential. Unpredict below that. My final prediction, unfortunately, the history tells you that Auburn wins this game, and I hope that's true, and maybe this is reverse psychology. I'm going to say that Auburn loses 26-20 at Kyle Field, at my namesake. Hate me, whatever, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw that one out there. I have full confidence in this team. I have full confidence in the staff that they can get this together, that they can manage every situation. But this is the benchmark for me. And I am concerned about some things that make me wonder if we're not going to have a little bit of a deficit on the road that we're going to have to manage and fight back from and make it very interesting and very close at the end. 26-20, Texas A&M wins. And I hope Auburn wins this one and that I am horribly wrong. Well, Carl, then that's a great thing. And I love that about you. But unfortunately, most people won't take those predictions, I don't want to say seriously, because that it's just predictions. We're all just having fun here. But that's why I try to be a little bit, I don't want to say even keeled because that's like I'm better than everybody. But you know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to really think about this thing. But I love everybody's optimism, though. Yes, boo me, boo me, boo me. It's logic, Kyle. That's why I said you don't have to dread. Maybe so. Maybe so. If Caddy can beat Texas and A&M with a broken AU team, this year's team can definitely beat them. Maybe so, but there's a lot of context around that game and a lot of context around this game that is very, very different and very, very unique to last year. But hey, it's not a bad point, and I'm rooting for us to win here. All right. What else haven't we talked about this game? I think someone brought up earlier, maybe it was Devin, the orange tweets. I think we have revealed that we were doing orange face masks for the game. We can talk about anything for the last few minutes here. What do you guys think about the orange face mask? Are you happy we're breaking those out? To me, that seems like it should be a home thing. The orange face mask. I love the white face mask on the road with the all white stormtrooper look. It is outstanding. Outstanding. I'm not a fan of the orange face mask. I'll just be honest with you guys. Not a fan at all. I'm not going to sit here and complain about it, but listen, if they get excited about it, it's in our arsenal. Why not use it at this point? So if you guys got any thoughts about that, please share them. As long as we lock down these wide receivers and play sound offense, we win. Simple. I don't know if it's that simple. Defense has got to show up in this game, especially the defensive backs. And they have so far. I've been getting amusement on Florida. How did you get Florida out of that, Kyle? I am nursing a headache, so it's kind of messing with me a little bit. On Mondays, listening to Feinbaum show, hearing the Bama fans wanting their binkies. It is an interesting time we're living in here. Pure aggression. Start off SEC play with the orange. Some predictions for Alabama Ole Miss. I hope so. I hope y'all are right. All white is dope. I like the orange, but man, the all white is just, it looks like a frozen look for freeze. Does it not just all go hand in hand? It does. All right. Final comments, questions, derogatory rebuttals. Get them in right now. Don't hesitate here. We're going to go ahead and close down the phone lines. No Texas A&M fans took advantage of it. Not that many fans do, but every once in a while it happens. So I just want to open it up for them. Get those questions, comments in right now. Let me let you know what we got coming up next is, I don't have the thing ready for you guys apparently, but actually I do, I think. There it is. Boom. Our discussion show after the game should be right after, barring unforeseen circumstances for myself. Hope you guys can join us right after the game. We'll talk about it, react about it. Won't be a lot of high level discussion. We'll look at the stats, but it's really just about kind of processing what just happened. Will it be a therapy session? Will it be a celebration session? You can only find out if you come join us right after the game. I think I said it for like 2:30 Central Time. Join us if you can. Don't miss Sunday night show, the Auburn Experience with Austin and myself. We'll talk about sports, culture, and family. Of course, we'll be talking about this weekend for Auburn as well. If you can, check out those links in the description for ways that you can help support us. One of those things that you could do is join here on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that join button below for $1. It's a very easy way to continue to help build us here, to continue bringing content out. You can give yourself some perks here on YouTube. You'll get icons next to your name like you've seen some of our fine people here, access to little emojis you can use in the stream, and you will have access to our Discord where you can hang out and talk with some other people that are part of the Conquer Club. It's technically, when you join our YouTube membership program, you're called part of the Conquer Club. So join that if you can. There's other links in the description. Biggest thing you can do is be here, smash the like button, and tell a friend. Help us build our little family within the Auburn family. Jimbo will find a way to lose the game. Boy, oh boy. Hope so. I hope that kind of rears its ugly head. Efficient gaming. Sorry, folks. Bama bounces back. Lane chokes in the spotlight as a head coach. I tend to agree with efficient gaming here, to be honest with you. And Neil, and that's what I love about Neil. He's been honest about his feelings about the game, but he hopes that AU embarrasses Texas A&M.
And that's what we're all hoping for. Even people like me who predicting Texas A&M to win, I am rooting for myself to be wrong. All right, folks, thank you so much for being here. Good stream as always, good crowd. You guys are the best little family within the Auburn family. Want to see you after the game on our reaction stream or Sunday night, or even next Wednesday on our Auburn family night. You guys continue to be the best little family within the Auburn family, and I appreciate you so much. Till I talk to you again. War Eagle.